Respawn Entertainment, the developer behind Titanfall and Star Wars Jedi Survivor, is supposedly working on a new Star Wars game that could put players in the role of a Mandalorian. These masked warriors have captivated the imaginations of Star Wars since Boba Fett first appeared in The Empire Strikes Back, and they have been a staple of the franchise's expanded universe for decades. Recent Star Wars media like The Mandalorian has fleshed out the lore and culture of the Mandalorians in Disney's official canon, making the idea of playing as one in a video game all the more enticing for fans. We might get our chance soon, as there has been an increase in AAA Star Wars video game announcements over the past few years. Respawn in particular seems to be spearheading this wave, as the Star Wars Jedi Survivor developer has no less than 3 untitled Star Wars projects in the works. One of these is said to be a first-person shooter, with many fans thinking that it could harken back to the classic Dark Forces games of the 1990s. Very little is officially known about this game, aside from Respawn saying that it will be a story-driven experience. Respawn might be looking toward more recent Star Wars works for its upcoming FPS, as a new rumor claims that it will be a Mandalorian game. This claim comes from Insider Gaming, which says that players will take control of a Mandalorian bounty hunter during the age of the Galactic Empire. Whether this will be Din Djarin of the Mandalorian fame or a completely new character is unclear, but the player will be tasked with tracking down bounties and bringing them in dead or alive for cash rewards. Previous rumors claimed that this yet untitled Respawn game would focus heavily on mobility, which Insider Gaming sources say will be done through the Mandalorian's rocket jetpack. These sources described this gameplay as very fast-paced, with rewards like increased health given to players who perform successive kill streaks. Mandalorians are also known for their weapons, and players will reportedly have access to a wrist rocket, a grapple hook, a visor for tagging enemies and bounties, and more. There are several new Star Wars games in the works, including the Ubisoft-helmed Star Wars Outlaws and my most anticipated Star Wars Eclipse. But the franchise may want to take a new direction in the future, releasing a game that is a bit more experimental or off the beaten path. One interesting way to shake up the franchise's gaming presence would be to launch a game starring the ever-iconic Grogu from The Mandalorian. Maybe not for whole game, but for a few sections in between, for a fun, unique gameplay experience. According to Insider Gaming's report, the supposed Mandalorian game will not feature an open world like the upcoming Star Wars Outlaws, instead taking players through linear levels set on various Star Wars planets. The only thing that is disappointing regarding this game is that it is in first person. It would have been much better as a third-person game. I hope Respawn change it somehow. This game is said to be in the early stages of development, with sources suggesting that it might be at least 2 more years before release. Assuming that this report is true at all, the timing for a Mandalorian Star Wars game couldn't be better given the increased popularity of the masked mercenaries over the past couple of years. According to a new rumor, there's a chance that a new game in the Astro franchise could be releasing for PlayStation 5 at some point later this year. The Astro series started life as the Playroom on PS4, with the game designed as a tech demo to show off the capabilities of the DualShock 4 controller and the PlayStation camera accessory. It was followed up by the Playroom VR, which filled a similar role, but for Sony's original PlayStation VR headset. The cute robots featured in these games were then given a starring role in Astrobot Rescue Mission, a PlayStation VR exclusive 3D platformer that released to widespread gamer acclaim in 2018. That game was followed up by the PS5 pack entitled Astro's Playroom, which served as a love letter to PlayStation's history and also did a great job of showcasing the capabilities of the DualSense controller. Astro's Playroom is one of the best PS5 exclusive games, and now it seems that even more Astro could be on the way. Insider Jeff Grubb said, "I've heard maybe Astro does happen this year. Considering the high quality of the previous Astro games, it will be exciting to see what the next game in the series has in store. However, it's unclear what shape such a project might take. With Astro's Playroom enjoying such a positive response, it's possible that the next Astro game expands on those concepts and delivers a bigger, traditional 3D platforming adventure. On the other hand, it's also possible that a new Astro game will instead serve as a direct follow-up to Astrobot Rescue Mission and leverage the capabilities of Sony's PlayStation VR2 headset. Fans should keep in mind that Astro series developer Team Asobi has yet to announce its next project. Time will tell, but it will be interesting to see what's next for the Astro franchise and what form Team Asobi's next project takes. Dead by Daylight has officially announced its next chapter, All Things Wicked, which will be available on March 12 across all platforms. Dead by Daylight has remained the top asymmetrical multiplayer horror game for nearly a decade now, and that is largely thanks to its steady stream of new content. New Dead by Daylight content is a mix of licensed killers and completely original creations from developer Behavior Interactive. Last week, Behavior Interactive began teasing fans with what they can expect from Dead by Daylight's next chapter. The developer released a found-footage live-action teaser of a mysterious creature attacking an unlucky camper in their tent. Speculation has been running wild as to this new killer's identity, and now Behavior Interactive has pulled the curtain back on what fans can expect. It's been confirmed that Dead by Daylight's new killer is called the Unknown, who is shrouded in mystery, while the new survivor is named Sable Ward. Players will be able to play as Dead by Daylight's newest killer and survivor on the Greenville Square map, a brand new location set in a quaint small town with a sinister, deadly history that should fit right in with the many other DBD maps. Dead by Daylight's All Things Wicked chapter will be available on March 12, though Steam gamers can play the public test build starting today. Behavior shared some additional details about what fans can expect from the chapter killer. The Unknown is a horrific creature that is armed with a deadly toxin that causes DBD survivors to hallucinate husks of itself. The Unknown has a unique ability where it can swap places with any of its husks at any given time, which should lend an air of unpredictability to any matches where it's featured. New survivor Sable Ward, meanwhile, lives in Greenville, the town where the new map is set. Ward's best friend Michaela Reed has gone missing, and so she sets out to investigate, which leads her into the fog. As far as Greenville Square goes, players are free to explore the town square, which includes attractions like a movie theater and arcade. Dead by Daylight Chapter 31 comes hot off the heels of the Chucky chapter and the recently added Alan Wake content. Behavior Interactive certainly has even more plans for Dead by Daylight up its sleeve, and it will be interesting to see what else makes it to the asymmetrical multiplayer horror game in the future. For now, fans can circle March 12 on their calendars. Dead by Daylight is crossing over with Iron Maiden as part of a new collection. One reason that fans have continuously returned to Dead by Daylight over the years is the asymmetrical multiplayer horror game's steady stream of crossover content. Typically, Dead by Daylight crossovers have seen it cross paths with existing horror franchises. The various Dead by Daylight crossovers have added all kinds of horror icons to the game's playable roster, with one of the more recent additions being the murderous doll Chucky of Child's Play fame. There will undoubtedly be even more horror movie killers added to Dead by Daylight in future dates, but the game's next crossover event will actually see it add content inspired by heavy metal band Iron Maiden. As announced by Behavior Interactive, Dead by Daylight is adding a new collection inspired by Iron Maiden. Band mascot Eddie, who appears on all the Iron Maiden album covers, will be represented by new legendary outfits for the Dredge, the Doctor, the Deathslinger, and the Oni, each one inspired by a different iteration of the character. Dead by Daylight survivors, meanwhile, will have the chance to collect very rare tour shirts, with Behavior teasing that a couple of the shirts even have a little surprise, so fans will want to keep an eye out. Anyone interested in the Dead by Daylight Iron Maiden collection should note that it's live in the game right now. As players check out Dead by Daylight's Iron Maiden collection and look for the Survivor shirt Easter eggs, they will also be able to listen to Iron Maiden's Fear of the Dark. Whenever players have any of the Iron Maiden cosmetics equipped, Fear of the Dark will play in the Dead by Daylight match lobby. With Dead by Daylight remaining popular even nearly a decade after its initial release, it's safe to say that there's plenty more content in the pipeline for the asymmetrical multiplayer horror game. Dead by Daylight fans can check out the Iron Maiden collection and look forward to Chapter 31 while they wait for more information on what the game's future updates will have in store. Hideki Kamiya has stated that he would love to do a remake of his older projects, including the first Devil May Cry and Beautiful Joe games. Hideki Kamiya was first hired by Capcom as a designer for various projects, one of them being Resident Evil 2. After Resident Evil 2's monumental success, Kamiya would continue directing games at Capcom, which included the first Devil May Cry, Beautiful Joe, and Okami. Kamiya then formed Platinum Games alongside Atsushi Inaba and Shinji Mikami, which led to the creation of Devil May Cry's successor series, Bayonetta. After a February 15, 2024 tenure at Platinum Games, Kamiya announced his departure from the studio, which shocked many fans. While he isn't retiring from the industry, he's unable to work on games for a year, per his contract. After his departure from Platinum, Kamiya started up a new YouTube channel in order to interact with his fans. One of his most recent videos has him answering fans' questions, including one regarding a possible remake of his old projects. In the video, Kamiya responds to your comments. Part 5. One of the first comments asked about a possible Devil May Cry 1 remake using Capcom's proprietary RE engine, even stating that if Kamiya directed it, it would be the definitive character action game. Kamiya admits that the idea is tantalizing, stating that he sometimes dreams of what remakes of games he previously worked on would look like in the modern day. Some of the games he had dreamed of in this way include Devil May Cry 1, Bayonetta, and Beautiful Joe. Kamiya then acknowledges that while there are HD ports of games like Okami and Devil May Cry 1 on modern systems now, he would love to remake these games with up-to-date graphics and a more sophisticated game design. Kamiya has expressed his desire to make another Okami and Beautiful Joe game before, commenting about how he felt that he left Okami unfinished and wants to do a third game for Beautiful Joe, even having a full story planned out. Of the Capcom published games that Kamiya previously worked on, the Beautiful Joe series has been stuck on the original consoles that they launched on, with the first game only ever released on the PlayStation 2 and Nintendo GameCube. With the massive success of Resident Evil remakes, Devil May Cry and others could be possibly next in the remake pipeline. Recent activities have suggested Capcom is looking to revive these abandoned franchises, including Beautiful Joe and Okami. Capcom has hinted at the possibility of reviving a number of its old franchises, including cult classics such as Onimusha, Okami, Dino Crisis, and Breath of Fire, among over a dozen others. This turn of events has promptly inspired hope among the fandom that Capcom's ongoing remaking efforts won't stop anytime soon. May 30 will mark the 45th anniversary of Capcom. After almost half a century of existence, the Japanese company boasts a wealth of beloved IPs. Recent years saw Capcom tap into that treasure trove by starting to remake some of its cult classics like the Resident Evil series. That particular endeavor is far from over, with a company official just recently confirming that even more Resident Evil remakes are on the way. In the meantime, the gaming giant is now soliciting public advice about which IPs to revisit next as part of a recently launched questionnaire. Called Capcom Super Elections, the survey asks fans to share which of the company's franchises they would like to see treated to remakes, sequels, or both. Not all of the listed options are actually in need of advocates, with the potential responses also including the likes of Resident Evil and Monster Hunter, two series that are very much alive and well. But even narrowing down the IP list to those that haven't been revisited in the last 5 years yields 17 franchises that Capcom has now name-dropped. The least dormant and also most recognizable name from that group is Mega Man, whose latest mainline installment was released in late 2018. At the other end of the spectrum are 1942 and Commando, two fairly obscure arcade games from the 80s. While the options provided by the survey are quite comprehensive, some of the listed items may actually be a misdirection of sorts. For example, even though the questionnaire outright asks fans whether they would like Capcom to reboot Dead Rising, a mid-2023 report from a credible industry insider suggested such a project is already underway. But the survey also goes over many long-forgotten Capcom franchises and games that likely won't be revisited unless the company's fandom makes a lot of noise. Dino Crisis is one such IP, as are Lost Planet, Okami, Final Fight, and Rival Schools. Looking at the social media chatter about the survey, many fans appear to be on board with the idea of some Breath of Fire and Mega Man remakes. Meanwhile, others used Capcom Super Elections as an opportunity to keep campaigning for the Onimusha franchise to make a comeback. Hopefully we get a lot of revivals from the beloved Capcom catalog. WB Games Montreal once worked on an ambitious Batman game that could have offered fans a completely new and exciting take on the Caped Crusader, but a series of leaks and a mysterious cancellation caused the project to be scrapped for good. Concept art and plot leaks promised a bleak and grisly take on Batman in Gotham City, mirroring another upsetting cancellation, Star Wars 1313. The two games were darker takes on beloved franchises, and with both titles seemingly getting canned, these games are sad reminders of what could have been. There is a long list of great-sounding games that have faced abrupt cancellations, but the untitled Batman project from WB Games Montreal is one of the most upsetting. The once-in-development game, nicknamed Project Sabbath, was set to bring to life a version of Batman that many fans had been hoping to see for years, but everything came crashing down without any clear reason why. One of the most exciting aspects of Project Sabbath was that it was set to star Damian Wayne. The game was planned to feature an older Bruce Wayne, possibly mentoring Damian, as he took over the mantle of protecting a rapidly deteriorating Gotham City. Many fans have been asking for an older version of Bruce Wayne for a long time, and leaks suggested that Project Sabbath was set to do just that. Leaked material about the game's plot details and characters hit the internet, giving gamers an insight into what to expect, but these leaks could have ultimately been the game's demise. Josh Keaton, Robin's voice actor in Arkham Origins, claimed that these leaks were what eventually caused the project to be shut down. During a recent livestream, Keaton alleged that he was set to play Damian Wayne, even completing several voiceover sessions. But the amount of Project Sabbath leaks revealed online caused development to cease. Although Keaton's claims of leaks killing the game have yet to be confirmed by WB Games Montreal, it's no secret that early leaks have been plaguing the industry for years. Keaton also stated that the version of Batman he was set to voice was not Bruce Wayne, further pointing at Damian Wayne leading the story. As the son of Bruce Wayne and supervillain Talia al Ghul, Damian Wayne's unique background would have been the perfect lead for a grittier Batman title, thanks to the character being raised by the League of Assassins. In the comics, seeing a version of Batman with a warped moral compass could have made for some incredibly compelling moments. It goes without saying that Gotham City is a playground for villains and criminals, but leaked concept art of Project Sabbath shows an even darker, rundown interpretation of Gotham City that is quickly giving into decay. Leaks also showcased a diverse list of villains that were planned to make an appearance, like the Judge, Gorilla Grodd, Black Mask, the Penguin, White Rabbit, and Poison Ivy. A Damian Wayne-led Batman game showing a morally gray protagonist taking out the many iconic villains that are spreading over Gotham City like a plague could have been the beginnings of the next great Batman series. After the lackluster reception of Gotham Knights, fans deserve a take on Batman that rivals the genius of the Arkham trilogy. A significant portion of Batman fans have been asking for a game like Project Sabbath for a long time, and its cancellation is one of the biggest losses in modern gaming. Where there is still an inkling of hope for Star Wars 1313, Project Sabbath seems to be scrapped for good, but hopefully, we will someday get the new Batman story we deserve. Speaking of cancellations, in a bit of disappointing news for Halo fans, it's been revealed that Industries had between 20 to 30 unsuccessful pitches for Xbox's flagship sci-fi shooter franchise, including a return to its popular Halo 3 Odyssey spin-off story. Before Bungie left Microsoft to pioneer the modern live service model with Destiny, its handling of Xbox's most important property was incredibly well received. One of its most highly praised titles, Halo 3 ODST, followed up the third mainline game 2 years later with a darker side story based around a group of orbital dropshock troopers exploring the ruined city of New Mombasa. With ODST having a smaller scale than the mainline series, the game took only 14 months to make. Since 343 Industries was created to take control of the franchise after Bungie's departure, many Halo fans have been clamoring for more smaller spin-off stories in the same vein as ODST. On Twitter, a former lead designer at 343 Industries, Kevin Schmidt, spilled the beans that, over a span of 12 years at the studio, there had been 20 to 30 pitched ideas for Halo that would have totally worked in the Halo universe. He mentioned that several of these pitches involved returning to the beloved ODST side story with both single and multiplayer experiences. Schmidt also mentioned that some of these pitches focused on more intimate character stories, and that one of them was a much darker idea. It's unknown whether it was the 343 studio heads or Xbox leadership that were shutting down all these interesting Halo ideas. Schmidt did mention all these pitches taking place over the span of 12 years, with Halo Infinite dwindling after more than just 2 years. The studio has yet to announce any plans for what's next for Halo. Since it seems like the studio may be moving on from Halo Infinite as a 10-year platform, perhaps it has new plans for smaller, story-focused titles like ODST and Reach. Whatever 343 is planning next, it's likely that fans are still several years away from hearing about it. Halo has fallen off a long way from what it used to be, and it needs a heavy overhaul. The release of the next Nintendo console, provisionally called the Switch 2, could slip into 2025, according to a new report citing several industry sources. The claim runs contrary to a number of recent rumors indicating that Nintendo is targeting a 2024 release for the Switch follow-up. As its predecessor is approaching its 7-year release anniversary, the Switch 2 is nowadays considered as one of Nintendo's worst-kept secrets. And while rumors about the new system have been circulating the industry for years, they have gotten much more specific in recent times, with the latest influx of reports suggesting that Nintendo is planning to release the console in the second half of 2024. September was repeatedly quoted as the potential release month for the Switch 2, although some sources insisted the hybrid system may not be out until the fourth quarter of the year. A third possibility was recently raised by Brazilian journalist Pedro Henrique Luti-Leap, who claims that the console will be out later than initially expected. The latest episode of the reporter's YouTube news recap saw him assert the Switch 2 is actually targeting a 2025 debut. Lip attributed the information to 5 unnamed developer sources from 3 different continents, who claimed they are currently working on Switch 2 launch games that are all aiming to release in first quarter 2025. Although this individual does not have a substantial track record of high-profile gaming hardware scoops to speak of, VGC's Andy Robinson mentioned there was some industry chatter about the Switch 2 slipping into 2025 earlier this week. Robinson noted that he still cannot corroborate Lip's story, while speculating that another March console debut makes sense given how well that timing worked out for the Switch. If Lip's information is accurate, then it is extremely unlikely that the same can be said about the recent rumor suggesting the Switch 2 reveal could happen next month. Nintendo historically favored unveiling new hardware fairly close to its release, with the Switch going from announcement to hitting the market in less than 5 months. Then again, the company did acknowledge its latest console's existence much earlier than that, having confirmed that the system was in development under the NX codename back in March 2015. This time around, the gaming giant opted for a much more secretive approach. Nintendo hence keeps dismissing the Switch 2 rumors, having just recently said that its current console will continue comprising the bulk of its business throughout its upcoming fiscal year, which runs from April 2024 to March 2025. Nintendo is planning to reveal the Switch 2 in June, a reliable industry insider has said. The same source also chimed in on the speculation about the timing of the next Nintendo Direct focused on first-party games. And while the console's release has ostensibly suffered from a notable delay, Nintendo's Switch 2 announcement plans may not have been pushed back nearly as much as a result of that move. That's once again according to Lip, who now believes that the Japanese gaming giant is currently planning to reveal its next console in June 2024, having said as much in a recent Famaboards post. Before the insider broke the news of the Switch 2 delay, many industry watchers believed that the device was looking at a March announcement. Lip's post also added to the ongoing speculation about when the next big Nintendo Direct will take place, which gained momentum following the recent confirmation that the February one will be a partner showcase. Namely, the insider believes that a general-purpose broadcast focused on the company's first-party games is happening in April. Lip said he's unsure whether the spring livestream is meant to be a full-fledged Nintendo Direct or one of its many-branded counterparts. What he's more certain about is that the company is also planning another Indie World showcase prior to that event, most likely in March. An April 2024 Nintendo Direct is a bold prediction, not least because the last such general-purpose livestream happened back in 2017, just after the Switch hit the market. However, considering the Switch's 2024 first-party game lineup currently appears quite slim, it is plausible that Nintendo will soon have more news to share in this area. Nintendo has started notifying publishers that the Switch successor will launch in first quarter 2025, VGC reports. One of its cited sources speculated that Nintendo's desire to build up a stronger Switch 2 launch title lineup is the primary motivator behind the internal delay. The console could still be unveiled in 2024. The gaming industry market had been expecting a boost in 2024 from the arrival of both Switch 2 and Grand Theft Auto 6, although the latter was confirmed for 2025 back in December. Now that the release of the next Nintendo gaming system got delayed to 2025, it will be very interesting to see who sells more systems next year. Will it be the PS5 with GTA 6, or will it be the Nintendo Switch 2? There is going to be some fierce competition in the sales war. Crucial, the consumer brand of American chip manufacturer Micron Technology, is set to release its next generation of PCIe 5 SSDs, according to industry leakers. The new drives will be faster than any of today's offerings, if rumors are to be believed. The Crucial T700 is among the world's fastest SSDs, delivering maximum sequential read and write speeds of 12,400 megabytes per second and 11,800 megabytes per second, respectively, thanks to its use of the latest PCIe 5 data standard. While the T700 performs around twice as fast as older PCIe 4 drives like the Crucial P5 Plus, it still cannot completely utilize the 15,700 megabytes per second bandwidth PCIe 5 affords to devices that use 4 PCI lanes like NVMe SSDs. For PCs, a rumored successor to the T700 that has popped up online, however, might be able to close that gap. A new Crucial PCIe 5 SSD, dubbed the T705, is already scheduled to be launched, Japanese outlet Jisakuhibi reported. A spec list for the new drive shared by Jisakuhibi showed that the T705 will be able to reach sequential read speeds of up to 14,500 megabytes per second. If these leaks are true, then Crucial's next SSD would outclass not just its predecessor, but also every other offering on the market. For context, the Samsung Pro, which is considered to be one of the best gaming SSDs right now, has a peak transfer rate of 7,450 megabytes per second. The Crucial T705 will be offered in 1 terabyte, 2 terabytes, and 4 terabytes capacities, with the 2 terabytes model being the fastest, according to Jisakuhibi. The new drives will come in black and white with or without heatsinks, but only a limited edition white 2 terabyte SKU will be equipped with a white heatsink, the outlet claimed. Known hardware industry leaker Mamamus shared supposed photos of the T705 on Twitter, including its special white variant. Much like the best DDR5 RAM kits, powerful SSDs often come with heatsinks to deal with the high temperatures the devices generate. Crucial is set to release a new PCIe 5 SSD that will be faster than any other offering currently out on the market. In this next section of the video, we have the usual monthly coverage of the best-selling games and systems across known markets such as the United States, Europe, UK, and Japan. Starting with the US, for January 2024, US consumer spending on games reached $5.1 billion, a 15% growth year-over-year, according to the newest Circana data. Software revenue reached $4.4 billion during the month, as the segment was up 15% compared to its performance last year. Consumer spending on gaming hardware dipped by 4% year-on-year, as it amassed $378 million. Sony's PlayStation 5 system was the best-selling console for unit and dollar sales during January. The Nintendo Switch placed second in hardware unit sales, and the Xbox Series systems ranked number 2 in dollar sales. The report adds that, at 39 months since its launch, the PlayStation 5's lifetime sales are currently 7% ahead of the PlayStation 4 during that same period. Sony's home console is also 68% ahead of the PlayStation 3's same time frame sales. Accessory spending jumped 45% year-on-year, totaling $246 million for the month. The PlayStation 5 DualSense Edge wireless controller Black was the top-selling peripheral for January in dollar sales. The first month of 2024 saw Activision Blizzard's Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 as the #1 selling game. January also had a number of new titles reaching the top-selling sales chart. Bandai Namco's Tekken 8 debuted as the second best-selling game. Warner Bros. Games' latest release, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, took third. Meanwhile, Atlus's latest RPG, Persona 3 Reload, was the fourth top seller. Circana also addressed why it did not have Pocket Pair's Palworld sales chart data within its report, just like Baldur's Gate 3 and Cyberpunk. Please note that Palworld publisher Pocket Pair is not a DLP participating publisher, therefore digital sales of Palworld are not included in the best-selling title reporting, said the firm. Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is at number 10, Gran Turismo 7 is at number 16, The Last of Us Part 2 at number 9, and God of War Ragnarok is at number 20. Gran Turismo 7 has incredibly long legs, and is about to surpass the dollar sales of Gran Turismo 3 in the US, which is the best-selling one in the series. Gran Turismo 7 will definitely end up being the best-selling title in the franchise, and the best-selling sim racer of all time. Now moving on to Europe. 12.14 million video games were sold across European markets, a drop of 7.3% over the same period the year before, GSD data reveals. EA Sports FC was comfortably the no-one game, with January unit sales that are almost identical to what FIFA 23 managed during the same period in 2023. The best-selling new game of the month was The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. The PlayStation game's opening 2 weeks was more than 2.5 times bigger than The Last of Us Part 1, which launched in September 2022. The Last of Us Part 2 did have an upgrade offer, where owners of the PS4 version could get the remastered edition at a heavily reduced price. Also, the PS5 install base has grown substantially since Part 1 was released. Tekken 8 debuts at number 7. It's a strong release for the Bandai Namco fighting game, with sales up over 80% compared to the debut week of Street Fighter 6. Tekken typically has a stronger following in Europe than Capcom's friendly rival. Leaping up the charts this week is Hellblade's Senua's Sacrifice. The Ninja Theory game had a steep discount on Steam, causing the game to rocket up the charts to number 8. A sequel is due to arrive in May. Also making it into the top 10 this week is Ubisoft's new Prince of Persia game, The Lost Crown, which debuts at number 9. Of course, Palworld would likely have made the charts, but the data only covers digital games from most major publishers. Over in the world of console hardware, across tracked European markets, console sales reached nearly 475,000 units over January, a slight dip of 1.4% over the year before. The data does not cover UK or Germany. Strong sales of PS5, which was still suffering stock shortages across Europe a year ago, and a sharp decline in Nintendo Switch sales. Nintendo Switch is approaching its 7th anniversary, and a successor console is expected to arrive next year. There was also a dip in Xbox Series S and X sales, which came in 3rd place. 1.8 million peripherals and accessories were sold in January, which is also a drop of 1.4% over the year before. 2.47 million games were sold in January in the UK, a drop of 3% over the same period last year. This is based on GSD data, which tracks all physical game sales and all digital sales from most major third-party publishers. The sales were led by EA Sports FC. EA's previous football game, FIFA, also led the charts in January 2023, and EA Sports FC actually had a better January than its predecessor. Last year there wasn't a huge number of new releases. Dead Space Remake was the highest charting new release at number 4. However, there were a couple of new titles this time around. The highest charting new release, at number 2, was The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, which did very well and benefited from a $10 upgrade offer. Owners of the PS4 version could get the PS5 version for $10. For its opening 2 weeks on the market, the game sold 2.5 times more copies than The Last of Us Part 1, which launched in September 2022. Also new in the charts is Tekken 8, which makes number 7. The data doesn't stretch back far enough to compare it to Tekken 7, but compared to last year's Street Fighter 6, Tekken's launch is over a third higher. Interestingly, the vast majority of Street Fighter 6 sales came via digital channels, whereas Tekken 8 still has a strong audience that prefers physical by comparison. Marvel's Spider-Man 2 hanging there at number 10. Outside of the top 10, Ubisoft's Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is at number 15, and Like a Dragon: Infinite Wealth comes in at number 23. Nearly 111,000 games consoles were sold in January in the UK, GfK panel data shows. This is a drop of 19% over last January, with all 3 main console platforms posting a drop in sales year-on-year. Xbox Series S and X sales were down 7%, PS5 sales were down 17%, while Nintendo Switch sales were down 31%. This year was always going to look tough in terms of comparisons, because last year saw PS5 and Xbox Series S and X become fully available in stores after a period of shortages, which caused a spike in numbers throughout last year. Meanwhile, Nintendo Switch is now approaching its 7th anniversary, which is around the time we'd typically hear about a replacement. In terms of accessories, 687,000 peripherals and add-on products were sold in January, which is a rise of nearly 10% over the year before. In Japan, Momotaro Dentetsu World, The Earth Spins with Hope, is back at the top of the Japanese monthly charts following its launch last November. The Konami title, which was at number 3 last month, moved 153,137 copies in January, according to Famitsu retail sales data. Super Mario Bros. Wonder followed in second, with 151,569 units sold. Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, which debuted on January 26, came in at number 3 on PS5, having moved 102,940 units, while the PS4 version ranked at number 6, with 77,134 copies sold. Combined, the game would have comfortably been number. Meanwhile, Spider-Man 2 came in at number with 98,157 units sold, followed by new entry Sharon the Wanderer the Mystery Dungeon of Serpentcoil Island, which pushed 85,424 copies. As for hardware sales, Switch was the highest across 3 versions at 241,282 units, with the OLED selling the majority. PS5 came in at second, with 185,480 units sold, followed by Xbox with 7,654. Regarding the number of physical game units sold during the period, Nintendo held a 34.1% share of the market, followed by Sega at 12.33% and Konami at 10.2%. The newly released PC, PS4, and PS5 game Granblue Fantasy Relink is already a big hit, having passed 1 million copies sold. Granblue Fantasy Relink is an action RPG and the 4th game in the Granblue Fantasy series. The original game, 2014 Feats Granblue Fantasy, was only ever released in Japan, so for many, Granblue Fantasy Relink may be their introduction to the franchise. Others may be familiar with the fighting game spin-offs Granblue Fantasy Versus and Granblue Fantasy Versus Rising, which were released in 2020 and 2023, respectively. However, Granblue Fantasy Relink is clearly taking the franchise to new heights, based on its sales. It's been announced that Granblue Fantasy Relink has passed 1 million copies sold worldwide. This is especially impressive considering the game has only been out for a couple of weeks. When this information came out, it seems like the positive reaction to Granblue Fantasy Relink could very well be what launches the franchise to new heights. Granblue Fantasy has already had anime and manga adaptations, but the new game seems to be growing the audience and could potentially result in even more multimedia opportunities. Of course, others will be hoping that Granblue Fantasy Relink's success translates to new games, though that remains to be seen. Sega Games has yet to announce a new Granblue Fantasy game, though it has other projects in the works. Uma Musume Pretty Derby Party Dash is announced for later this year, while the studio also has the previously announced Project Awakening, Garnet Arena Mages of Magicary, and a new Metal Max game for consoles alongside Au Gakuin Hiroka for mobile. Those impressed by Granblue Fantasy Relink and interested in playing more of Cygames' library should note that many of the studio's titles are Japan-only games, and some of them are no longer available. The latter is the case with the Nintendo-published Dragalia Lost, which was shut down in 2022 after 4 years of availability. Alan Wake 2 still hasn't recouped its development costs, despite establishing itself as Remedy Entertainment's fastest-selling title to date. The Finnish developer has revealed that disclosure was accompanied by some specific sales figures for Alan Wake 2, which look promising enough to suggest that the game will manage to break even in the near future. While Alan Wake is nowadays a cult classic, its sales were modest enough that Remedy spent years searching for funding for its sequel. The project finally entered active production in August 2019, after the studio struck a publishing agreement with Epic Games that also included Alan Wake Remastered, released 2 years later. However, Alan Wake Remastered did not sell as well as Remedy hoped it would. The second game in the series appears to be doing much better by comparison, with Remedy just announcing that Alan Wake 2 had sold 1 million copies as of year to end 2023, and another 300,000 units over the following 2 months. That makes it the fastest-selling title in the studio's history, with the group specifying that Alan Wake 2 over 50% more copies in its first 2 months than its last flagship title, Control. managed in its initial 4 months on the market. Even so, the project has yet to break even, although Remedy assured investors that a significant part of its development and marketing expenses has already been recouped. In late 2023, Finnish outlet Helsingin Sanomat reported that Alan Wake 2's budget was in the ballpark of $75 million, of which some $21.5 million was earmarked for marketing, citing analyst estimates. 1.3 million sold units ostensibly generated around $60 million in revenue, once storefront cuts are accounted for. Remedy's past disclosures suggested that Epic Games Publishing would be taking 100% of the game's revenue until Alan Wake 2 breaks even, and 50% afterward. Not having a physical release did hurt its sales overall. Physical sales is a major part of console gaming. It would have sold more with a physical release. Remedy said they will continue promoting and supporting Alan Wake 2, and are creating 2 paid DLCs that will expand the story. Epic published its Epic Games Store 2023 Year in Review blog post, revealing some metrics for the PC storefront and affirming plans to launch an iOS store in Europe this year. After a slight dip in 2022, consumer spending on the PC Epic Games Store was up 16% in 2023 to $950 million. However, Epic-produced games still count for the overwhelming majority of that total. Spending on third-party PC games actually declined 13% year-over-year to $310 million. The top titles by player spend and engagement included Epic's Fortnite and Rocket League, as well as Genshin Impact, Dead Island 2, and Grand Theft Auto 5. The store's user base continues to expand, up 17% year-over-year to 270 million, with Epic cross-platform accounts up nearly 11% to 804 million. That 270 million seems good, but I don't know if that's concurrent, or the total that includes people that created an account and left. With new self-publishing options available for developers in 2023, the catalog of games on Epic Games Store nearly doubled, with more than 1,300 new titles joining the 548 available at the end of 2022. The flow of free games on Epic Games Store declined over the year as well. Epic offered 86 games in total with free promotions, compared to 99 in 2022. They were collectively claimed 586 million times, down from nearly 700 million the year before. As for the Epic Games Store's European iOS debut, Epic said it will be operated by Epic Games Sweden AB and is planned to launch this year. Palworld developer Pocket Pair has announced the crafting and survival game has seen over 25 million players since going on sale last month. Pocket Pair said the Steam version has sold an incredible 15 million copies, whereas on Xbox it's seen 10 million players. Palworld's explosive launch, which saw it break a number of Steam concurrent players records, has cooled somewhat. Last week, Pocket Pair commented on the debate around the declining number of players, calling the discourse lazy. While the concurrent player count on Steam has fallen steadily since the peak, it's worth pointing out Palworld remains one of the most played games on Valve's platform. Last month, Pocket Pair said Palworld will get PvP, raid bosses, and new islands in future updates, but it has targeted critical issues first. And that's all for the video, ladies and gentlemen. Like and share the video for a greater audience. Comment your thoughts on the topics, and donations are always appreciated. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon. And until then, from SMPV, it's goodbye.